Most of us remember that day. It's etched in our minds, a permanent reminder of tragedy. We all watched helplessly as lives were lost, heroes were born, and a nation was forever changed. The loss was unimaginable, the sorrow unbearable. But through that pain, we witnessed the resolve of a nation. We saw chaos give birth to courage, fear transform into fortitude, and destruction give way to determination. In the midst of the brokenness, freedom stood immovable. Today, we remember those we lost. We honor the heroes who saved so many, and grieve with the families who have suffered so much. It's been 20 years, but we still remember, and we will never forget.
Welcome, everybody, to the House of Destiny. Today is the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and so I have invited Dr. Greg Wark to join me for a discussion.
Happy
today.
Saturday, Donné.
Today is a happy Saturday.
It is, yes.
And we have a lot to discuss.
We do.
I'm
looking forward to it.
What are your thoughts on today and the anniversary and how things are going?
It is a real unique time that we live in. You know, it's no secret to everybody watching that we have a lot of upheaval and turmoil in our nation right now. We've kind of come out of Iraq, or we've come out of Afghanistan now, like it or not. Pretty much everything that started with the 19 terrorists who attacked our nation, they actually had developed this plan over several years under the leadership of Osama bin Laden. Mm-hmm. And what they thought they could do is to hit freedom and to take away our freedom, to change the world forever. So that they had this grandiose idea of what could happen, if they carried out this thing. I'm looking forward to talking with you and our audience today a little bit about how it really unfolded. I don't know where you were where were you when it happened?
Well, at the time we were living in Dallas. Mom and Dad lived in Dallas, and I was early 20s, and I had an apartment just up the road. And I actually had an appointment that morning. So I had to be up early. I think it was a doctor's appointment or something. And I had to be up early, and I was already up, but I didn't have the TV on. And I got a call from the doctor's office, and they said, we're going to have to cancel. Something's going on. And then the phone started ringing, and my mother called, and my mother's saying, Donné, you need to turn the TV on. Something's going on in New York. And at the time, I was in my early 20s. I didn't even really understand what the World Trade Center was. It was a very vague,
right.
People work up in there, and it's government stuff, and there's, trading and whatever. To me, it didn't even really, I didn't really realize the gravity of it. And I was wondering, why are they canceling my appointment over this? Because things happen in the world all the time.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And I turned the TV on, and when I turned the TV on, the planes had hit already.
Both planes?
Both planes. The minute that I saw that, I had a memory. Because my dad had taken us to New York. Many times we went to New York, but one time in particular, we went up the Twin Towers. And I had forgotten about it. And I had gone up, my grandfather, Gloria and Roger, my grandfather, which was my mom's parents, he was with me. And we had gone up, and we were looking out of the window. And I was thinking, my goodness, we are so high up. And I'm scared of heights. So my initial reaction was, I had this glass window, I'm looking out. And the strangest thing happened to me is I thought to myself, we're high enough an airplane could reach this. And I even had the image in my mind of the nose of an airplane coming toward the building. And I said something to my grandfather, like, it would be scary if a plane. And I must have been 12 or 13 years old. And when I turned the news on and saw what was actually, because then I realized what's going on. The planes had already hit, but they hadn't collapsed yet. And I looked at it and I had that memory of that moment standing in the Twin Towers as a child, thinking a plane, and it was actually happening. So the horror of that childhood idea that I had, which I think maybe God might have put that in my mind, or maybe I picked something up being around my dad. But just that concept and the reality of that actually happening, and remembering being there and how many people were in that building, it hit me. And I thought, my goodness, this is bad. And then the buildings fell. And when the buildings fell, I remember that everybody just felt terrified. Like, where are we getting hit next? What is going to happen next? And that's when we started getting news of the Pentagon and the plane that was taken down, which I know you have more to say about that, I'm sure. Of that particular plane. But for overall, it was just, if you remember, we sat glued to that TV for a week or more.
Yeah.
Everything shut down across the country. Everybody was just so uncertain because this was happening on American soil. You know, we see things on the news and we get upset and we get involved and we help and we do stuff, but it's always this far away thing. When it happened on our soil, there was something deeply, it was almost like being stabbed in the heart. It was like such a painful thing to look at this happening in America, and the reality of that, I think, for everybody who was watching at the time was, wow, they've just hit us on our soil.
Yeah, I must, working with military people, I immediately connected into their circles, and in their circles, a lot more was being known about these attacks, and so I began to hear what was actually going to be happening as a response almost immediately. But I know that our viewers today, you guys have all had the experience that we've all had. I was with my son who's born on 9/11, and we were having a birthday party, and then next thing I know, all my world of military people began to contact me, and I was contacting them, and from there, this coldness, it's the only way I can describe it, came over me, this sense that the world just changed. Not just America, but the world just changed. And every one of you that are watching, you were touched in some way or another, and have maybe been touched since, because of sending your sons and daughters to war to fight, which is what, this all started because of Osama bin Laden. And, the way that it was planned, Donné, and I think this has all become clear now, is that the idea was, all right, let's take their freedom. So let's do a diversion. Let's attack Twin Towers, and then take out the Pentagon and take out the White House. And I think that that's where I'm really intrigued, because of the way those who do not know freedom don't understand the mindset and the heart in those who know freedom.
Exactly.
And so they made a plan to take our freedom, thinking that our freedoms were protected by a White House and by our military, when in fact our freedom is protected by those who have it in their heart.
Yes.
And I think that's where this is fascinating. Today, many of us were watching this show today because we've lived in freedom our entire lives. Yes. And let us know, one of the problems that our enemies, one of the problems they have is because they don't understand freedom, and they don't look at history. They don't know what happens to those who are attacked when they've known freedom. I wanted to read something here. I thought it was fascinating. Abraham Lincoln, in the Gettysburg Address, said these words, referring to the dead. He said that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom. I want you to really note that. A new birth of freedom. They will also be represented by a government, listen to this, of the people, by the people, for the people, and he said, shall not perish from the earth. It was almost prophetic, Donné.
It was.
He's saying, look, what we're seeing right now, we're seeing all of that. Someone's trying to take it again.
Oh, yes.
We're going to go into that in a little bit. But I think it's important that we understand that throughout the history of our nation of freedom, we've fought for freedom. We've died for freedom.
Always.
We've had, today here in Nashville, they have these guys, and I pulled around the corner of this farm, and I look at this farm. There's a bunch of guys with these long rifles dressed up, and I'm going, what is going on there? They're behind bales, and they're doing a reenactment of the Civil War.
Love doing that.
And I'm like going, only in Tennessee could this happen,
Or Texas.
But the one thing, Donné, our attackers didn't learn from previous attacks on our freedom.
No, they didn't.
They didn't learn from it. That's one of the problems with those that have sought to take our freedoms. They don't learn. And, we need to talk about that a little bit more.
I think so. Because the number one thing, this is something it's just occurring to me now, and I'm just going to bring it up. We talk about civil rights. Those are rights granted to you by a government. Correct? Am I correct?
Yeah.
But God gave us freedom.
Right.
God gives us complete freedom.
He is the initiator of the greatest freedom.
If you do look at history, over and over again, when you see these horrible things that happen throughout history, it's always men trying to control and take the freedom of other men
That's
or
right.
women. When I say men, I mean men and women. But
I was offended until you cleared that up. Thanks, but I just wanted you to know that. It's a real
please don't be offended.
slander against us guys, But really almost 100% was
Well,
guys.
that's another thing that I also think is a problem in our society right now is the attack on the man, and we need our men. And women, and I'm all for women being able to have freedoms and work, and but I'm really not into this extremist feminist movement that is putting down our men because we need our men. And as a woman, I can stand up and say that I see that part of the attack the enemy is whether it's willingly or not. Through people, at the end of the day, it all goes down to the devil and what he's up to, and there is this attack on the man, the strong man.
Yeah, we call it the feminization of manhood.
Yes, and I absolutely do not like that. I accept anybody for how they are. Some men are more masculine than others, and it's fine with me. But this attack on the man is an attack on the family. It is an attack on leadership. It's the worst thing you could possibly do is to try to just put that down and weaken the men. The weakening of the men is a very big problem I'm seeing. And I know that kind of we were going to talk about this, but it came to me when you were saying that because it bothers me as a woman. The Gettysburg Address, when he talked about a new birth of freedom, I have a deep sense that is going to wake up masculinity again. I hope so.
Because we're in the middle. Donné, if you look at history, Americans have been attacked quite a few times. In fact, I come from San Diego, and I went to visit a man in Rosecrans. He had a $20 million facility there, and he was interested in what we were doing. And he took me for a tour of his property, and I didn't know this, but San Diego has bunkers. Bunkers where they were expecting the Japanese to bomb San Diego.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh. And I'm in this bunker and there's a turret and a big gun, and it was just fascinating. But the thing about it is that, we can look back into our history. We can see that the British attacked us. Mm-hmm. That's called the Revolutionary War. And what was the result of that? A birth of a new freedom. Think about it. And then the Japanese sat over there with their little ships in a little boat, or in a little pond, and pushing them around and planning to take our freedom. And what was the result of that? A birth of a new freedom.
Yes.
Then we got these Islamists who, somebody says radical Islamists. I need to say that. These radical Islamists decide that they're going to come take it. And what was the result? A birth of a new freedom.
Yes.
Where our young men ran to re-enlist and to enlist.
They did.
We rebuilt. We hunted down those responsible and we shot them in the face.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you attack freedom people, not a nation or people. You attack freedom, you're going to get shot in the face.
Yes.
And your world is going to change. Now, some people may be offended by that. I don't really care. I mean, it's time that we realize that freedom is something that is, if we don't fight for it, we will lose it. And I don't know,
It's hard to get back if you do.
And let me say this, and you brought this up, Donné, so this is yours.
Okay.
We went to Afghanistan. We went to Iraq,
yeah.
and the gospel has broken out in both of those nations. And even though it's underground, because we went there.
Even in Iran too. You said Iran, but Iran has the biggest underground church in the world.
That's a fact. So what happened is Islam attacked the United States and its freedom, and as a result, the gospel fought back and is winning. Isn't that cool?
It is.
You attack us, guess what? We messed it up in Japan. We had an opportunity to evangelize Japan and we didn't take it. But this time we learned from our mistakes and we went in there and we took it, and so I think it's important to recognize that on this 20th anniversary, we're once again under attack. You realize that,
yes,
right?
We are under attack. And I think,
you guys...
And it's different this time, but it's still the same thing.
I would say it's more sophisticated.
It's just more sophisticated and it's manifesting differently, but it's the same thing.
It is.
It's the same thing that has happened throughout history, just like you've just in most recent history. But if you go even further back, it's the same. It's the same thing happening over and over again, and freedom will now be born anew and afresh.
That's right.
Through that.
That's right.
So there is that cycle that happens.
So,
and
our viewers may be wondering, wait a minute, how are we attacked right now? Well, how's your free speech doing? How about your freedom to assemble? Well, how about the freedom over our own bodies, to make the decisions about our own bodies, or freedom to elect our own representatives without someone robbing
trusting our elected representatives who are meant to serve us.
Yeah, I mean, that is under attack right now, whether you like it or not. As socialism is right now rampant in our nation. It is filling our government posts. Deceit, lies, and every other thing you can imagine is right now trying to take our nation again. And guess what it's going to do? It's going to give birth to a new birth of freedom.
My dad prophesied that in 2000.
Tell me about that.
In 2001. That's not the prophecy I was going to tell you about. This is a different one. It's just occurred to me. You keep speaking about a birth. In 2009, the day my dad first started wearing the mantle, or whether it was that week, he prophesied from, I believe it was Seattle, Washington, or Portland, Oregon. I have to look it up. But that's when he saw that woman in the sky prophecy. But really, that woman in the sky prophecy was him seeing that America was in the... And I don't think he just meant America, and I could be misquoting, the West especially, was experiencing what he was actually bending over his piano because he said it was like birthing,
yeah.
That something was being birthed. And when something is being birthed, for all the ladies out there who've had babies, we know how much painful that is. But at the end, the result is a new life. Beautiful new life. And so you're speaking about new freedom, and I'm seeing the parallel in because that day he saw so much stuff. He saw North Korea and all the things that are happening now, and I could list them all, and I can do that on Code Breakers. I won't do it now. But one particular thing he saw was that birth pang happening in America, that birthing of something new. So, there is sort of a hopeful thing. And the other thing that I wanted to read you guys is a prophecy from December 1st of 2011. And this has to do with, in particular, Afghanistan, the soldiers that went to Afghanistan that fought in the Middle East after 9/11.
Those who just gave their lives, the 10, was it 10 or?
It's 13. 13 soldiers lost their lives this past couple of weeks in Afghanistan over that disastrous withdrawal. But the December 1st, on December 1st of 2011, my dad was in the garden that day, and he had been he was sharing with everybody about visions he was having as he was praying from the garden. He didn't come into the broadcast. And he was seeing the youth, but also the citizens of many of these countries, especially the Middle Eastern countries, defying, and we just referred to the underground churches in the Middle East that are there, but defying the leadership and saying, we're tired of living this way. And we want the freedom to say Jesus, which right now you say Jesus there and they'll kill you.
Right.
And we've witnessed that.
Let me interrupt for just a minute.
Sure.
Because the one thing we don't realize is what good is going to happen now that the terrible thing has had. I mean, those kids have tasted freedom.
No.
Because America was in there. When America pulled out, guess what? Immediately, they tried to crush all their freedoms. Guess what? They tasted it. And once you've tasted freedom, it's never going to get out.
And that's why you see those people in Afghanistan today bold enough, even though the Taliban is in control of the government, they're protesting, they're saying, go ahead and try to kill us. We are not going to bow to you.
Right.
And here's the hope. Here's a hopeful thing that I found. Because I'm working on a Code Breakers for Afghanistan, which will be out in a couple of weeks. So I'm not doing too many clips and stuff right now because I'm going to show it everybody the bigger picture here, which is just incredible. But the one thing that he said after talking about seeing that these people would rise up against these governments, these corrupted governments, he says, and I'll quote him now, the corrupt leaders that have held on to power seemed to have been destroyed. So he'd seen this vision. He was in this, he said he saw himself over Afghanistan or Pakistan, Libya, that area. And he said it seemed like the corrupt leaders that had been holding on to power had been destroyed. And I began praying, this is my dad speaking now, and saying, yes, Lord, we need righteous leaders. But then my prayer started changing as the Spirit of God began to pray through me. And I groaned and cried for these young people. God said the people, the soldiers that went into that area, into the regions, Afghanistan and all the different places where they had to fight. He said, I needed their feet. Now this is what God said. I needed their feet upon the soil, even though it was war. There were many righteous young men, soldiers who were Christians, and God needed them on that soil to take possession.
Wow. You know, that reminds me of something. It's a little off topic, but your dad and me and the team, when they were murdering people in Ukraine with sniper rifles, it was an experience I will never forget. Walking with your father, and there were like 4 of us walking, and we were right down in the middle of where they were sniping these people, innocent people. There was blood everywhere. There was tents and people, women crying and just grieving over their lost children. I remember I saw a helmet on the ground and I picked it up, and when I picked it up, my hand went into some brain matter.
That's horrible.
But the thing, what happened is Kim, in that turbulent environment, began to prophetically speak that the blood of those killed would cry out from the ground.
Yes.
Would cry out from the ground. And I think that's something that's really important, Donné, as we celebrate this 9/11, not really celebrate, but we remember those who have fallen. As you know, blood is so powerful in the scriptures. It talks about it quite a bit. You know, we often grieve over the lost lives of our loved ones, and we think about what a waste, and we don't realize that in God, those who have been innocently murdered, like those people in Ukraine, I remember when Kim said it, that their blood will cry out from the ground. Well, the blood is crying out today still from the ground. From the ground of the Twin Towers, from the ground of the Pentagon, from the ground of Pennsylvania, where those people heroically took down that plane that was supposed to hit the White House.
Stopped it from hitting gave their lives.
Absolutely. There was so much heroism. So many people showed what it is to to be free. So many people live their lives in the last moments of them heroically to teach us what freedom does to the human soul. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that as believers, the Lord came and said, I've come that you might have life, that you might have it more abundantly. Freedom begins and ends with Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
And for those of us that today are here remembering the solemn moment and thinking about how it affected us, how it might have affected people we know, it's also important that we understand that we have been given the best and the only and the greatest freedom that could ever be given to a human being. That Jesus Christ is the way, that he is the one who came to set the captives free, that he is the one that came and he defeated Satan on his own turf. And he said to you, you will not own man. I created man in my image and in my likeness. And no matter what you do, I will give those even in captivity freedom. So that you can never, ever own them again. And I think it's vital that we recognize the power of our Lord Jesus Christ in this moment. That yes, God has shown us many things and we've been hurting and we've been in war for 2 decades. But now the Lord is ready to do what I think the theme of our today is, which is a birth of a new freedom. I believe that is prophetic for this day and this time. I think that while most of us are looking at the media in their lack of actually talking about what's really going on and so on and so forth, I think we also should be encouraged that even as I showed you, if Donné and I have shown you of what happened in the Revolutionary War and the Japanese attack and the Islamist attack, that every time there was a birth of a new freedom. And I believe, and I speak it now, that we are prepared for a birth of a new freedom. And I think Donné hit on something a minute ago when she talked about men. I mean, that came out of the blue, but it was like right there hitting me in the heart that I believe God is going to, I'm not very tolerant of, I'm not very tolerant.
Of what?
Men that don't act like men.
Well,
I'm sorry. I'm like.
Neither am I.
Well, I looked at a guy the other day. I said, "Man, what's wrong with you? What? Look at you. I mean, what? Men don't talk that way." Now I know you're going to say, "Well, you're a phobe of something." I'm not. I was just raised to be a man by a man.
Yeah.
And then I raised my boys to be men. And I believe that God's Spirit wants to come on men now that are acting like boys and launch them into manhood. I love that, what you shared there. And
again, that's not about outer strength either. It's an inner strength in a man that's necessary to hold together the family, which then extends to the community, to the country. It's a system God put in place that is being attacked. And that's the reason I don't
love it.
Like that.
I love it. I mean,
I want my man to be a man. And there's nothing wrong with it.
I want you to teach at our next men's event.
Okay.
Okay, because there's not many women. I mean,
Well, that's because women feel like, oh, well, we have to submit to the man and we won't have the freedoms and with the women's liberation movement and feminism.
They don't know my wife.
I'm not against any of that. Look, I'm quite happy that we're able to vote and we're able to be heard, and our role is just as important. But people need to actually be doing what they're born to do and be what God made you. And if we function that way, the system will function better. And again, that it does start with the man who is the head of the household, and there's nothing less about me as a woman by admitting that, because he needs me too. And so if we can have that family unit, and look at people's circumstances don't always turn out that way. They may have a spouse pass away. They may have things happen. I'm not making a judgment on a smaller scale. I'm saying on the larger scale, the way the system should function. God made it that way. He made man, he made woman, he made the family. And if it starts there, a lot of things, these little problems that, they're not little, but the smaller problems can be solved by allowing that to happen. And the enemy has gone straight through that with all of this. So,
I
that's
think,
an aside. But
I think maybe today you guys are watching and and you're possibly over fixated on a lot of the things that are going on that look like, we're in serious trouble. I got to tell you, we looked at the TVs on 9/11 and we thought, we're in serious trouble. And throughout our history as a nation, we've looked at different circumstances, and it looked pretty dire.
World War II.
Exactly. It looked really dire.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like now we're in World War I and II being fought at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was impossible. But what I'd like you to leave this broadcast thinking about is, what in your heart would the birth of a new freedom look like? I think that's really what we're here to do. Is the House of Destiny is we want to look ahead, and we want to say we want to know what God is doing. And I really, as I knew that Donné and I were going to be on TV today, I really prayed about this, and Donné and I talked about it previously, and we agreed that the theme was going to be a birth of a new freedom. And I think that new freedoms mean that our freedom-loving people are going to do the same thing they've always done when we were at this place.
Yes.
And those who think they're going to shove socialism down our throats, those who think that they can control us through all sorts of deceitful regulations, hey, I'm sorry to say, but a new truth is about, a new freedom is about to be revealed. And I pray that that's what happens today, Donné. And I'd love to pray and bless the people. So, Father, today, Donné and I thank you so much for the opportunity to spend this time with our brothers and sisters who are fighting their own fights wherever they are in the world. And we know, God, that you are here drawing us together through this medium of the cameras and the TV, Father, for us to become unified under a single desire, and that is to be your instruments of freedom. To look all of the death and destruction and the deceit and the lies, all of which represents Satan himself, that God, we as your people, we speak life and freedom in spite of everything that is going on, past and present. We pray today, God, that all of those who had individuals that died, family and friends that died in the days and years to come, that God, that you would be there to encourage them, that they were left alive for a reason, and that reason is to imbibe the freedom of Jesus Christ in such a way that they represent that freedom in all of their life choices and everything that they do. We thank you, God, for blessing this moment. And as we've talked sometimes randomly, God, you make it make sense because it means something to everyone that's watching. And so Donné and I stretch out our hands today, and we bless those who are watching, and those, God, that are close to them. May the message of a new birth of freedom go from this place to the hearts of the people, to the actions of the people, and let it, Father, go viral and attack the enemy who thinks he is going to take our freedom. But we declare today, you can't have it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks for joining me today,
I appreciate
Greg.
it. It's great to be with you on this Saturday. You guys, we love you. We're proud of you.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today. We're so glad that you did. We want you to know that we here at the House of Destiny care about your needs, whether it's physical, financial, or spiritual. It's important to us. You can email us at hope@houseofdestiny.org, and we would love to pray for you. You are special to God, and you are special to us.